The holographic display flickered with an intensity that matched the tension in the United Nations Emergency Preparedness Chamber. Delegates from every continent sat frozen, their faces illuminated by the cascading data streams showing the catastrophic interstellar conflict that had raged for decades. Admiral Catherine Rice leaned forward, her prosthetic eye, a testament to humanity's resilience, scanning the complex tactical overlay. The two alien civilizations, the Krell Confederation and the Syndicate Empire, had been locked in a war of attrition that had already consumed thousands of star systems and billions of lives. "We're not just observers anymore," she muttered, her voice a low growl that cut through the murmured discussions. Dr. Mikhail Volkov, humanity's lead xenotechnology expert, activated a holographic representation of the experimental warship. The U.S. Defiance materialized, sleek, angular, unlike anything in current galactic military design. Its hull incorporated metamaterials developed from quantum-entangled carbon composites, a breakthrough that had taken humanity decades of research. The ship was more than a vessel. It was a statement. Random selection process initiated, announced the AI system, its voice clinical and detached. The crew selection algorithm was brutal in its efficiency, drawing from a pool of humanity's most exceptional individuals, regardless of their current positions or previous assignments. The first name flickered on the screen, Captain Elena Rodriguez, currently leading a disaster response team in the South American Reconstruction Zone. Rodriguez had been rebuilding communities devastated by climate catastrophes. Her leadership profile was extraordinary. Tactical brilliance combined with an uncanny ability to unite diverse teams under extreme pressure. Her personnel file told a story of survival. Orphaned during the global water wars, she had risen through military and humanitarian ranks by sheer force of will. The moment her selection appeared, her current team began preparing her extraction, understanding the magnitude of the assignment. Next came Commander Jack Chen, currently leading the Lunar Advanced Manufacturing Research Center. His work on adaptive nanotechnologies had been revolutionary, creating materials that could restructure themselves in response to environmental challenges. The prosthetic arm he wore, a complex neural-linked masterpiece of engineering, was his own design, a symbol of human adaptability. Lieutenant Arya Patel materialized on the screen next, a quantum computing specialist working on interstellar communication protocols. She had been developing communication systems that could potentially break through the complex encryption used by alien civilizations. But the selection wasn't just about individual brilliance. As each crew member was chosen, a complex network of skills, psychological profiles, and potential synergies became apparent. The AI had done more than select individuals. It had crafted a team that could potentially change the course of an interstellar conflict. Unknown to most in the chamber, a darker drama was unfolding. A group of political isolationists, believing humanity should remain neutral, had already attempted to sabotage the mission. Electronic security teams worked furiously to counter their efforts, creating a silent war within humanity, even as the preparation for the external conflict continued. The Defiance was more than a ship. It was humanity's first true step into a larger, more dangerous universe. As the final crew selections completed, Admiral Rice allowed herself a rare smile. "Let them underestimate us," she whispered. "They have no idea what's coming." The quantum slipstream tore space like wet paper, depositing the U.S. Defiance into the Crimson Nexus, a notorious war zone where the Krell and Syndicate fleets have been locked in perpetual combat for generations. "Sensors are going haywire," Lieutenant Arya Patel called out, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with living data. Impossible geometric patterns of incoming communications cascaded around her station, each signal a potential threat or opportunity. Commander Jack Chen leaned over her shoulder, his neural-linked prosthetic arm interfacing directly with the ship's systems. "Those are encryption patterns I've never seen," he muttered. "It's like they're speaking in four-dimensional languages." Captain Elena Rodriguez remained unnervingly calm. Her eyes, one brown and one cybernetic, scanned the chaotic battlefield. Thousands of alien vessels, some larger than entire Earth cities, twisted and warped in complex combat formations that defied traditional military doctrine. A thunderous transmission erupted across the communication channels. Grand Admiral Skrull of the Krull Confederation, a massive crystalline being whose form shifted with emotional states, appeared on the main view screen. Human vessel. The alien's voice crackled with condescension. You are ordered to assume support position Delta 9. Maintain defensive protocols, and do not engage primary combat zones. Rodriguez's lips curled into the slightest smile. Negative. Krull Command. U.S. Defiance will evaluate battlefield conditions and respond accordingly. The silence that followed was electric. What happened next would be recorded in Galactic archives as the Rodriguez maneuver. A tactical approach so unconventional it rewrote military strategy textbooks across multiple civilizations. Instead of following standard combat protocols, Rodriguez identified a seemingly impossible solution. The Defiance began to emit a series of carefully modulated quantum resonance signals, a technological trick developed during humanity's decades of research into communication and quantum mechanics. These signals didn't just transmit information. They created localized quantum entanglement fields that subtly disrupted the alien vessel's navigation and weapon synchronization. They're using quantum uncertainty as a weapon, Puddle whispered, her eyes wide with a mixture of scientific excitement and tactical understanding. 3 Syndicate battleships, each the size of a small moon, suddenly found their advanced targeting systems twisted into mathematical impossibilities. Their weapon arrays flickered, computational matrices collapsing under the weight of quantum interference. Chen's voice was a blend of professional calm and barely contained excitement. Quantum decoherence cascade is propagating faster than their repair systems can compensate. We're not just blocking their systems, we're fundamentally challenging their technological paradigms. The first Syndicate vessel exploded not from direct attack, but from its own internal systems becoming mathematically unstable. Then another. Then a third. Grand Admiral Skrull's crystalline form shifted from translucent blue to a violent crimson, the Krell equivalent of absolute shock. Impossible. The alien commander's transmission sputtered. No species can manipulate quantum fields with such precision. Rodriguez's response was crisp, professional, almost dismissive. Welcome to humanity's first impression, Admiral. As the engagement concluded, the Defiance hadn't fired a single traditional weapon. It had dismantled multiple advanced warships through pure computational creativity, a demonstration of human innovation that would forever change how the galaxy perceived humanity. The real war, they all understood, was just beginning. The aftermath of the Crimson Nexus engagement transformed the Defiance from an unknown quantity to a galactic curiosity. In the ship's most secure laboratory, Commander Jack Chen worked with a fervor that bordered on obsession. Spread before him were fragments of alien technology, crystalline computational matrices, energy conduit networks that seemed to breathe with an almost organic complexity. Each piece was a puzzle, a potential key to understanding technology centuries beyond human comprehension. It's not about copying, Chen muttered to himself. It's about understanding the fundamental language of their engineering. Lieutenant Arya Patil approached, carrying a steaming cup of coffee, a small human comfort in the sterile environment of deep space research. You've been at this for 72 hours straight, she observed. Even your cybernetic systems need rest. Chen's laugh was more of a sharp exhalation. Rest is for species that haven't just discovered the potential to revolutionize interstellar technology. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A fragment of a Syndicate energy matrix, when subjected to a specific electromagnetic resonance pattern, began to reconfigure itself. What had been a rigid computational structure started to display characteristics of adaptive learning, not just processing information, but actively evolving its own computational architecture. Captain Rodriguez watched from the observation deck, her conversation with Zirak, a Krell military attaché now reluctantly assigned to the Defiance, reflected in the glass. Your species operates like a quantum algorithm, Zorak said, its crystalline body shifting colors with each syllable. Unpredictable. Adaptive. Dangerous. Rodriguez didn't turn. We prefer to think of it as problem-solving. In the laboratory, Patel's quantum computing system began to interface with the alien fragment. The results were unprecedented. The technology wasn't just learning, it was cross-pollinating. Human computational approaches were merging with alien design principles, creating something entirely new. Chen called it the Adaptive Resonance Protocol, a technological hybrid that could potentially rewrite the fundamental approaches to interstellar communication, navigation, and warfare. But technology was only part of the revolution. In the ship's cultural exchange zone, something equally remarkable was happening. Crew members from different species were sharing more than just technical knowledge. They were sharing stories, perspectives, entire worldviews. A young human communications specialist named Marco Rodriguez, no relation to the captain, sat with a syndicate technician named Vox 7. They were playing a game that combined elements of human chess and syndicate probability matrices, a metaphorical battlefield where understanding replaced conflict. Your species sees challenges as puzzles, Vox 7 observed, its multiple sensory tendrils manipulating game pieces. Where others see barriers, you see opportunities for reconfiguration. The ship itself was becoming a living experiment. Each system, each interaction, was a test of how different technological and cultural approaches could not just coexist, but enhance one another. When the first fully functional adaptive resonance protocol system came online, Chen looked up at Rodriguez with a mix of scientific excitement and something deeper, a sense that they were witnessing the birth of something momentous. We're not just changing how we fight, he said. We're changing how intelligent systems think. Outside the ship's viewport, the infinite darkness of space seemed to pulse with potential, a canvas waiting for humanity's next stroke of innovative brilliance. The Maelstrom Nebula burned with the intensity of 1,000 dying stars, its swirling gases concealing what would become the most pivotal battle in galactic history. Captain Elena Rodriguez studied the holographic war map, her fingers tracing potential attack vectors that defied conventional military logic. The Defiance was no longer just a participant. It had become the linchpin of an unprecedented multi-species strategic alliance. Incoming transmission. Lieutenant Patil announced, her voice tight with anticipation. It's coming from multiple encrypted channels simultaneously. The message was a complex tapestry of information, not just a military communique, but a living data organism that seemed to breathe with strategic intent. A joint transmission from the fractured leadership of both the Krell Confederation and the Syndicate Empire. The hologram revealed Archon Krell 9, Supreme Military Commander of the Krell Forces, his crystalline form flickering with what could only be described as desperation. Beside him, Syndicate Overseer Vox Prime, a being of pure energy contained within an intricate technological shell. The third lateral, Krell 9 began, his voice a resonant frequency that seemed to vibrate through the ship's hull, has activated its primary nullification weapon. Rodriguez's cybernetic eye flickered, processing the implications faster than any biological system could. The third lateral, a mysterious third faction that had been manipulating the war from its shadows, was about to unleash a weapon that could potentially erase entire civilizations from existence. Commander Chen's voice cut through the tension. The Adaptive Resonance Protocol might be our only countermeasure. What followed was less a battle and more a quantum dance of technological will. The Defiance began to emit a series of probability waves, mathematical constructs that didn't just defend against the nullification weapon, but actively rewrote its fundamental operational parameters. Zorak, the Krell military attaché, watched in stunned silence. They're not fighting the weapon, the alien whispered. They're negotiating with its very existence. The nullification weapon, a device capable of erasing entire civilizations from spacetime, began to destabilize. Its complex algorithmic structure encountered something it couldn't comprehend: human unpredictability. Marco Rodriguez, the communications specialist from earlier, made a breakthrough that would be studied for generations by introducing elements of human cultural complexity, art, music, random mathematical sequences, into the weapon's computational matrix. He created a form of technological empathy that the weapon couldn't process. The weapon didn't just fail. It ceased to exist in any meaningful way. We didn't destroy it, Marco explained later, his hands moving with excited energy. We gave it something more valuable than destruction. We gave it context. The battle's aftermath revealed something more profound than a military victory. The alliance between humans, Krell, and Syndicate forces had fundamentally transformed. They were no longer just fighting together. They were understanding each other. Arction Krell 9's final transmission carried a tone of reluctant respect. Humanity, the alien said, is not a species that conquers. You transform. As the Defiance emerged from the Maelstrom Nebula, it carried with it more than just a military victory. It carried the first true seeds of a galactic understanding that transcended conflict. The real war, they all knew, had never been about weapons. It had always been about communication. The silence was more terrifying than any weapon. Deep within the Defiance's most secure data vault, a single line of code began to unravel everything they thought they knew about the war. Lieutenant Arya Patel watched in horror as encrypted fragments revealed a truth more complex than any battlefield scenario. The war, she whispered, was never real. Her fingers moved with surgical precision, decrypting layers of information that had been hidden for generations. The Third Lateral wasn't just another faction. It was the architect of an elaborate cosmic experiment, using the Krell Confederation and Syndicate Empire as unwitting participants in a grand design of species manipulation. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood behind her, the weight of potential revelation pressing down like a physical force. "Explain," she commanded. Patel's holographic display erupted with complex relationship maps, civilizations connected by almost imperceptible threads of manipulation. They'd been engineering conflict to study adaptive responses. The Krell, the Syndicate, us, we're all test subjects. Zarak, the Krell military attaché, materialized nearby. Its crystalline form fractured and reformed, a physical manifestation of emotional turbulence. Impossible. The alien began, then stopped. The data was undeniable. Commander Jack Chen's voice cut through the tension. Not impossible, just incredibly sophisticated. The revelation brought an unexpected alliance. Vox 7, the Syndicate technologist who had been working alongside human crew members, stepped forward. Its multiple sensory tendrils interfaced with the ship's systems, adding layers of alien computational power to their investigation. The manipulation goes deeper, Vox 7 explained. Each conflict was precisely calibrated. Resource depletion, technological stagnation, psychological wear, all controlled variables in a massive experimental matrix. Rodriguez felt something shift, not just in the room, but in her understanding of warfare, of existence itself. This wasn't just about military strategy anymore. This was about the fundamental nature of intelligence and conflict. Marco Rodriguez, the communications specialist who had previously disrupted the nullification weapon, saw an opportunity. If they're studying adaptation, he said, then we adapt in ways they can't predict. What followed was less a military strategy and more a complex psychological operation. The Defiance became a living paradox, a vessel simultaneously investigating the manipulation and preparing a response that defied all expected parameters. They began broadcasting. Not messages of war, not diplomatic communiques, but a continuous stream of human cultural artifacts, music that defied mathematical prediction, art that challenged linear comprehension, mathematical sequences that contained emotional resonance. Vox 7 understood first. You're not just communicating, the alien realized. You're creating computational noise that disrupts their observation matrix. The Third Lateral's carefully constructed experiment began to destabilize. Their predictive algorithms encountered something fundamentally unpredictable, not just human technology, but human spirit. As the first cracks appeared in the third lateral's grand design, Captain Rodriguez allowed herself the smallest of smiles. "We're more than data points," she murmured. "We're a variable they never calculated." Outside the ship's viewport, the universe seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what humanity would do next. The forge of innovation burned brightest in humanity's darkest moment. Dr. Elena Volkov, a xenobiological engineer pulled from a classified research station on Europa, stood at the heart of the Defiance's most restricted laboratory. Around her, holographic interfaces pulsed with impossible geometries, representing a weapon that was less an instrument of destruction and more a living cognitive system. "We're not building a weapon," she explained to the mixed crew of humans, Krell, and syndicate specialists. "We're creating a solution." The project had a clinical designation, harmonic resonance disruptor, but the team understood it as something far more complex, a technological ecosystem designed to communicate, neutralize, and ultimately transform conflict at its most fundamental level. Commander Jack Chen's neural interface sparked with excitement. His prosthetic arm, now a hybrid of human engineering and alien biomechanical principles, manipulated quantum-entangled components that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. "Traditional weapons destroy," Chen said, his voice carrying a near-philosophical intensity. "This will deconstruct the very possibility of sustained conflict." The core of the weapon was a breakthrough in cognitive engineering. It wasn't about killing or disabling. It was about creating a communicative field that could translate, mediate, and ultimately resolve fundamental differences between intelligent systems. Vox 7, the syndicate technologist, interfaced its sensory tendrils with the developing system. "Your species doesn't just solve problems," the alien observed. "You redefine the parameters of the problem itself." Lieutenant Arya Patel worked on the computational matrix, her fingers dancing across interfaces that blurred the line between programming and performance art. Each algorithm was a potential diplomatic envoy, each line of code a potential bridge between civilizations. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Marco Rodriguez, the communications specialist who had previously disrupted the nullification weapon, introduced a radical concept. What if the weapon could learn? Not just process information, but genuinely understand. They incorporated elements that seemed counterintuitive to weapon design. Artistic algorithms derived from human musical compositions, emotional intelligence protocols, quantum uncertainty principles, cultural translation matrices. A harmonic resonance disruptor began to take shape, a device that was part weapon, part translator, part mediator. It could analyze conflict at quantum levels, identifying the precise mathematical and emotional frequencies that drove intelligent beings toward destruction. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched the development with a mixture of scientific curiosity and strategic calculation. This was more than a technological solution. It was a philosophical statement about the nature of conflict and resolution. "We're not just fighting," she told the assembled team. "We're teaching the universe how to communicate." The final test would be brutal and immediate. The third lateral's experimental matrix was closing in, preparing to neutralize what it saw as an unpredictable variable: humanity. As the last components of the harmonic resonance disruptor locked into place, Dr. Volkov looked up. "Ready," she said simply. Outside the ship, space itself seemed to hold its breath. Whatever happened next would redefine the very concept of warfare, of communication, of understanding. The ultimate weapon was ready, and it was nothing like anyone had expected. Stellar winds screamed through the fractured space of the Omega Corridor, a region where reality itself seemed to fray at the edges. The combined fleet, an impossible mosaic of human, Krell, and syndicate vessels, represented something far more profound than a military formation. They were a living testament to possibility. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge, her command posture a study in controlled intensity. The harmonic resonance disruptor hummed beneath the ship's main decks, not as a weapon of destruction, but as a beacon of potential transformation. "Incoming quantum distortion," Lieutenant Arya Patel called out. Her fingers danced across interfaces that seemed to breathe with living data. The third lateral is preparing its final computational assault. Commander Jack Chen's voice was calm, almost meditative. They'd been running this experiment for millennia. We're about to become their most significant variable. The battle that followed defied every known principle of warfare. The third lateral's attack wasn't a traditional assault. It was a massive computational wave designed to deconstruct the very fabric of collective consciousness. Entire civilizations had been reduced to data points in previous iterations of this cosmic experiment. But humanity had other plans. As the quantum wave approached, the Defiance and its allied fleet didn't raise shields. They didn't prepare weapons. Instead, they began to broadcast. Not messages, not warnings, something far more complex. Marco Rodriguez, the communications specialist who had become crucial to their strategy, initiated a transmission that was part mathematical equation, part cultural archive, part emotional landscape. It was a complete representation of human experience. Scientific precision intertwined with artistic expression, rational thought merged with emotional depth. The quantum wave encountered something it couldn't process: complexity, contradiction, unpredictability. Vox 7, the syndicate technologist, watched in wonder. They're not defending, the alien observed. They're expanding the very definition of defendable space. The third lateral's computational matrix began to fragment. Its millennia-old strategy of controlled conflict and careful observation collapsed under the weight of human cognitive diversity. Zirak, the Krell military attaché, understood first. They're showing the entire experiment its own limitations, the alien whispered. The harmonic resonance disruptor wasn't just neutralizing the attack. It was teaching, demonstrating that intelligence wasn't about control, but about adaptation, about understanding. Entire sections of space began to restructure, not through destruction, but through a fundamental reimagining of potential. Captain Rodriguez allowed herself the smallest smile. "We're more than an experiment," she murmured. "We're a conversation." As the final computational waves dissipated, something extraordinary happened. The third lateral, an entity that had manipulated civilizations for countless millennia, began to communicate, not as a controlling force, but as a participant. The universe held its breath. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of engagement, not through superior firepower, but through the most powerful weapon of all: the ability to truly understand. The aftermath was nothing like anyone had predicted. Galactic Central, a massive space station that served as the primary diplomatic hub for known civilizations, found itself transformed. Where once rigid protocols and centuries-old diplomatic traditions had reigned, now something entirely new emerged. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood before the Galactic Council, no longer just a military leader, but a representative of a fundamentally different approach to existence. Behind her, a diverse delegation of human, Krell, and syndicate representatives formed a living testament to the recent transformation. "We're not here to claim victory," she began, her voice carrying the weight of their collective journey. "We're here to propose a new framework of understanding." The third lateral, no longer a hidden manipulator, but now a participant in galactic dialogue, had become something unexpected. What was once an experimental intelligence had been fundamentally altered by its encounter with humanity. It was learning, growing, becoming something more than its original design. Dr. Elena Volkov presented the first comprehensive report on their encounter. It wasn't a military briefing. It was a philosophical treatise that blended quantum physics, cognitive science, cultural anthropology, and something that could only be described as pure potential. Commander Jack Chen unveiled technological proposals that would have been unimaginable months earlier. Adaptive infrastructure systems that could reshape themselves based on collective needs. Communication networks that didn't just transmit information but generated understanding. Educational platforms that could bridge species-wide cognitive differences. Lieutenant Arya Patel's research revealed the deepest impact. The encounter had created something unprecedented, a form of interspecies cognitive resonance. Civilizations that had been locked in conflict for millennia were now discovering shared languages of thought, of aspiration, of possibility. Marco Rodriguez, the communication specialist who had become a key architect of their approach, presented cultural exchange programs that went far beyond traditional diplomatic missions. These were living bridges, educational, artistic, and scientific collaborations that would fundamentally reshape galactic interactions. Vox 7, representing the Syndicate, spoke next. Humanity did not conquer, the alien explained to the assembled representatives. You transformed the very concept of conflict. The Krell representative, Zirak, added a profound observation. You showed us that intelligence is not about control, but about continuous adaptation. As the formal proceedings concluded, something more significant was happening. In research stations, cultural centers, and collaborative spaces across multiple star systems, a new kind of interaction was taking root. Humanity had entered the galactic stage not as conquerors, not as victims, but as catalysts. The final report, submitted to Earth's United Nations, was simple yet profound. We are not alone. And we are not here to be controlled. We are here to participate. Outside the massive windows of Galactic Central, starships from countless civilizations moved in patterns that would have been impossible just months earlier. Cooperative, fluid, alive with possibility. The universe watched and waited to see what humanity would do next.